There's really no secret about our approach. We keep moving forward, opening up new doors, doing new things, because we're curious. And curiosity keeps leading us down new paths.
Welcome back to We Call It Imagineering, an insider's look at the creativity, design, and technology that go into our amazing experiences and the people who make them. To our fans, our world-famous rides are the epitome of exhilaration, wonder, nostalgia, and just plain fun. For me, I love the thrill of Indiana Jones, the suspense of Tower of Terror, and the rich storytelling of the Haunted Mansion. And from the rugged troop transports to plunging elevators to swiveling doom buggies, our ride vehicles have to work harder, last longer, and be safe and reliable for our guests. 70 years ago, Walt Disney and the very first Imagineers built the original rides at Disneyland using the most advanced technology of the time. They had to think differently than traditional engineers because everything we do is led by story and emotion. Today, Imagineers are still inventing and testing revolutionary ride systems and vehicles that seem to defy the laws of physics and bring you closer to the action. And when it all comes together, that's what makes the difference between a good experience and a great one. So let's go chat with Imagineers from our ride engineering studio to learn how they infuse their magic into some of our most iconic experiences.
We're always exploring and experimenting. We call it Imagineering.
Derek, it is awesome to be with you here today. Our ride studio has so much history around innovation and creativity. It's a pleasure to come work every day.
I love working here because at the core, I'm a ride junkie, thrill junkie. I love rides, so being able to design rides for a living is really a dream job.
I think it's so important what a team effort everything at Ride Engineering is. No one can do it alone. You need a diverse group of engineers, mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, software engineers, civil engineers, all coming together to do this amazing job.
One thing I really love about this place is the history and legacy here. The fact that we've been designing rides for over 70 years now is just mind-blowing.
It's incredible. I mean, it goes all the way back to the days of Walt and starting Disneyland. Delivering prototypical systems year after year, decade after decade, that have to meet excruciating levels of safety, reliability, and duty cycles not many other industries have to deal with. Most engineers are given a big folder full of technical requirements that helps them design their products. At Imagineering, we're given story scripts and concept artwork to start from. How do you approach meeting these really challenging requirements?
We do a lot of mock-ups, making sure that every step of the way we're trying to adhere with the core of the story as much as possible.
Does it always work out great the first time?
It never works out.
Of
the
course
first
not,
or second
right?
time.
So how do you get to that
time.
final product?
It's iteration, working very closely with the creative team, the story writers, making sure that we're manifesting their vision physically. The creative teams really challenge us with delivering some crazy, out-of-the-box concepts. And I think that's what drives this place. A lot of it is just immersing yourself in the story, being able to understand in detail what the story is we're trying to deliver and how best to deliver it.
Bob, it's a pleasure to talk with you today. Our backdrop is a project you worked on for the original Disneyland Park.
I was hired as a body designer. Walt assumed if I designed bodies, I do mechanical design, and I didn't. I shut up and started in anyway. So that was the very first challenge, that we start literally from zero for this car for Autopia ride.
Today, I lead the Ride Engineering Studio. But 70 years ago, you had to tell a story in a way that the creative directors wanted you to tell, but the technology wasn't there.
We had no smartphones, nothing was digital, we had no calculators, everything was done completely by hand. But here was the clue. I had auto shop in high school. I knew all the different shops that would build race cars. That's how we were able to get things done. On the monorail, we actually used techniques of hot rodders building vehicles, using the same shops that would form the metal for us, and then we would assemble all this stuff in the machine shop at the Disney studio. Very slowly, we became a manufacturing company of ever more sophisticated vehicles. Think of it, we opened in 1955. By 1958, Walt's got me designing and engineering the very first monorail in the Western Hemisphere. And the funny thing was, you know what made it easy? I never went to engineering school. I didn't know you can't do it.
South by Southwest with Josh and Alec. We're going to be sharing how we bring Disney stories to life in our attractions and cruise ships. And there's going to be a few surprises at the end.
We are in an era of unprecedented growth. We're constantly developing new tools that allow us to tell our stories in even more compelling ways, powered by cutting-edge technology.
The key to all of this is a partnership we have with both of our teams, and we start that collaboration very early on. This helps us have strong connections with our audience, which is so unique to Disney.
This allows us to put the emotion into the motion. And obviously, we'll go to any lengths to achieve this.
Imagineers are the living embodiment of the Stark Enterprises mission statement, the curiosity, passion, inventiveness. It's the Area 51 fun.
We started this attraction thinking about how do we bring Tony Stark as inventor to life. What this is becoming is Stark Flight Lab.
You get to experience flight through Tony Stark's robotic arm as flight test, essentially.
To give guests the feeling of being recruits, seeing if they have what it takes to fly like an Avenger. We're combining two ride systems that we've never combined before.
Behind me, this is our chassis that zooms up and down the track using linear synchronous motors. Transport system takes you into the lab. This allows you to align with the robot, decouple from that transport system, and then couple to the robot to experience the flight. That's kind of a two-part experience on this attraction.
Transferring a vehicle from one system to the other is fascinating innovation.
The big thing is safety. We need to have both of these things coupled at the same time so that they're safe to do the handoff before we can lift off the robot.
And hopefully invisible on the creative end.
We started there. That's been some of the evolution with this back and forth of how we want it to feel. We've actually said, instead of hiding it like we normally do, celebrate it.
And it is very techy. The technology that's getting you from point A to point B, it's a very visible thing, so it makes sense to include as part of the experience.
We're eventually going to have 12 of these working together. They're going to be this big ensemble. As we started drawing this out, they really looked like a kick line of dancers. And we said, maybe we really treat these as a kick line of dancers. We can bring some of that personality in the same way that we think about bringing choreographers in and working with them on making these look fun to watch as well.
These are robots that have personalities, and each individual one has its own way of maneuvering.
We're learning, how does it feel to fly? How can we give our guests that feeling and lean into what these massive robot arms can do? Wow.
After the opening day, there were still innovations going on in the park. One that I think of is Haunted Mansion. Were there some firsts there?
Haunted Mansion was going to be a walkthrough, and then they could never get a walkthrough to work because people were going to take time. It's hard to control. The attractions in those days, all you saw was the back of the vehicle in front of you. But most people forget that several years before, the voyage through inner space was the first time we used a machine called Omnimover. We put a body on the chassis and let the body go up and down and turn right and left. Now that means as we go past the scene, the people can watch the scene all of a sudden. Then we whirl around and we go to the next scene. That means that length of that total ride, we chop out all that wasted time in the segue between scenes just by able to just turn the body.
And the Omnimover has become a popular type of ride attraction around the world. And we've even taken notions from that original Haunted Mansion and used them on Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind.
Gabby, we are definitely standing in history today.
We're here to see Haunted Mansion.
At the time, it was one of the most innovative ride platforms that the park had seen.
When we first opened Disneyland, we were really great at moving rides forward, but that meant we had to bring the show to the ride track. We weren't able to control what the guests got to see. Haunted Mansion changed that.
That's what's so interesting about a system like this. It's so mechanical. The guests don't see what's going on below the floor. They're in a haunted mansion, they're traveling around, yet there's this large mechanical electrical system moving them through the story. It's some of my favorite times of working on a project is that kind of back and forth between the creative intent and the engineering solutions.
When creative asks us for a ship that's flying through space, we have to imagine, what does that feel like? And that pushes us to be better engineers. We have so many rides around the world, so many unique systems, which is challenging, but it's also really fun.
Often they don't know what 4 feet per second or 2 Gs of acceleration feels like, so we have to build something to show that. Whether it's an office chair, flatbed truck, or some crazy mechanism that we designed, having to do it iteratively through mock-ups and prototypes and putting people in the actual experience so they can feel the sensation of what our intentions are for the ride.
Regardless of the type of ride I'm making, I want to impact them. Whether with tears in their eyes or they're just beaming, I want them to feel how I felt when I was a kid, but then I also want to inspire.
Just like movies have become more and more real, and theme park attractions and rides have had to become more and more immersive and realistic. Haunted Mansion was way ahead of its time in putting you in the moment and making you believe that you're really there.
Here we are in the chest room of the Millennium Falcon Smugglers Run attraction. As a kid, everyone growing up, they all wanted to fly the Millennium Falcon. But the Millennium Falcon has 6 seats. How do you make that into an experience when you've got thousands and thousands of guests going at the same time? One of the fun things about this attraction is a 90-foot diameter turntable, similar to what you see here, made up of 7 wedges. Each wedge contains a giant projection dome that you sit in when you go in. A Millennium Falcon cabin representative, an 8 actuator motion base, so it's made up of 4 of those turntables. Each turntable has 7 wedges on it. All of those are independent of one another. So if a turntable goes down, the other 3 can run. If a wedge goes down, the other 6 can run. It's great for our park partners in terms of reliability and uptime and keeping this attraction and experience something that guests can see all day long. One thing that was unexpected with the 8 actuator system was how much stiffer the mechanism was. From a creative perspective, we can get much more lifelike responses from the flight. Since you're flying the Millennium Falcon, you need to be flying the Millennium Falcon. You can't really fake that. You feel the jerks, feel the bumps, you feel it in the asteroid field. Yeah, when you accidentally fly into the TIE fighter.
The real-time rendered aspect. Sometimes you fight the TIE fighter, sometimes you don't. Yep. Most of our simulator motion-based type systems are pre-rendered. This one's happening in real time. The motion, visuals, everything.
On this attraction, we leverage logic controllers and other industrial equipment because those factories and automations are running 24/7, much like our attraction. And then on the show game side, we leverage existing video game engines and computer graphics cards to get the experience that we want. We work with those companies. How can we enhance your product, push it in ways it wasn't necessarily meant to? We always strive to go a little bit further. It improves their product and it gives us a better product for the future.
All of that technology brought together allows us to literally step into the movie. I grew up watching Star Wars and wanting to fly the Millennium Falcon, and here you get to do it in real life.
Same for me. I got the privilege of being at Galaxy's Edge on the day it opened, watching their emotional reactions as they turned the corner and saw the Millennium Falcon outside of the attraction, hitting home for them, for what they grew up with, what they experienced. All of this is done to pull at the emotion, pull at the feel that you had from the movies.
Bob, what a better fitting place to talk with you today than Disneyland, which is celebrating its 70th anniversary this year. What other attractions are still here today from opening day?
We had the Autopia course, Snow White ride, what we call the flat floor dark rides, Mr. Toad. We didn't have the first Main Street vehicles until within about the first year. Walt wanted to use antique cars and modify them so they would work, and I said, why don't we make an old car brand new? So I designed a frame, we figure out what kind of engine you can buy, and we have a car, the little red car on Main Street. Then we added the yellow car. Then Walt says, we don't have a double-deck omnibus. Oh, I go buy a beer truck chassis and make a body to fit. But Main Street, the second floor and third floor, they're all a little bit smaller scale. We have to make the omnibus smaller to scale so the whole scene looks right in the proportions. If you look at that omnibus, you'll notice the people on the lower floor face inward. The people on the top, they're facing out. That upper floor does this, So we've scrunched the bus down because I can't scrunch the people. If we made a standard bus, it would not fit Disneyland.
And that's the storytelling element that our guests experience a difference when they come to Disneyland. And it's details like that. It all matches. Something's just right.
If you do timeless design, it'll get recognized later.
We got a lot of exciting new ride-based attractions coming up. Some of the most innovative and creative stuff I've seen in a long time, especially some of the work going on in Florida.
We've got a ton of rides in development. One that you're working on, Mark, is Cars.
Yep. We've been doing a lot of different experiential mock-ups that our creative partners and both engineering and creative can experience. We went out, rented some ATVs, and we tried different terrain. From that trip, we developed certain features, and then we came back here and found the right partner who specializes in building motocross tracks around the world, and he helped us develop this entire track.
Speed is always something that we love to do. It's fun to go fast, but it's also really fun to go over terrain, over hills, bumps, and rocky parts of the path. That was a huge validation that this rally race would work really well in concert with a more traditional speed race that we have in other experiences. The amount of engineering and technical expertise that went into that is far greater than what just an ATV on the road would need to experience because of all the different components having to come together.
In the dirt mock-up, I'm steering you.
Right.
Now the vehicle's gonna steer itself through a track system. Do the two match, or does it feel totally different? So that's the next big milestone for us.
And I think the amazing thing about what our ride team does is you've got so much going on under the hood. I guess quite literally in this case. What the guest feels is just pure joy and a great family thrill. We're building a pretty massive coaster over at Disney's Hollywood Studios with our Monstropolis and Monsters, Inc. door coaster.
You look at it and you go, I need to be suspended. I need my legs flaring all over the place as I'm just missing doors and thematic elements. It's gonna be really fun.
You're gonna see other trains throughout the building, and to see that kind of energy very much mimics the sensation that we saw in the actual Monsters, Inc. door vault.
I think what guests are really going to be floored with is just the beginning of this ride.
So that iconic scene in the film where the claw kind of grabs the door and lifts the door up to shoot it out into the vault, we're recreating that.
Right.
Guests will go up in the air and hit the first boost zone and get shot into the door vault for Monsters, Inc. And that sensation alone, which again, something that we haven't done before, where one system interlocks with the other system to get you up and out, that's a wow moment just from the moment you board the vehicle.
You're standing in the queue line and you're watching all of this dynamic stuff happening around you. Just the anticipation for this ride is going to be insane.
There's different lift mechanics going on in that queue. So at any given time, one will be going up, another will be going down. Yeah. It's going to be quite the experience. And this is exactly, I think, what we, as Imagineers, are so fortunate to get to do. You have these iconic moments from these films where you want to go live that experience, whether it was having the chance to race with Lightning and Mater or getting to actually ride a door in the door vault. You want to step into a Cars environment or into Monstropolis. We get to recreate these moments from the screen into real life. You actually get to live it.
What do you think the future of attractions are and attraction development?
Technology jumped so far from the type of technology that we only knew here at that time. We can make absolutely 100% smooth tracks with vehicles, which means we can focus the body and the view and the guest experience. We can focus it tightly on the story and have great flexibility to change the animation to show at any time without having something odd about a vehicle interrupting that story. That is the direction.
So Bob, what's your favorite attraction?
It's the Main Street fire engine. One day Walt came into my office and I said, Walt, we don't have a fire engine on Main Street. And he goes, no, Bobby, we don't. About 20 minutes later, the accounting department phones up and says, Bob, write this number down. This is the job number for the new fire engine project. And I thought, oh, I'm gonna get a fire engine. See, Walt only picked out what he's going to have in his park. Of record, I'm the only one that suggested an attraction that didn't exist. Now, the end of that story is, what was the last photograph of Walt in his park before he was gone?
I'm guessing.
He was sitting in the fire engine with his friend Mickey Mouse. That completed that circle. And I just thought, that fire engine's right here.
Bob, that's wonderful.
Yeah.